Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 12 Response Show. I'm Sarah Guernelli. We're joined by Patrick Laverty, a cybersecurity expert. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. This is a lot of fun to join you.
So tell me a little bit about your experience with cybersecurity.
Oh, my job is what we call a pen tester or a cybersecurity consultant, where I get hired by my company to go test the security of lots of other companies. They might be your local mom and pop, they might be a Fortune 100 type company, but we're really testing, looking for vulnerabilities before the hackers find them and be able to tell them how to fix it and what their risks are.
That sounds interesting. So how do you go about doing that? Do you assume the role as a hacker to try to breach someone's IT system?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I do. I try to do all the same things that the hackers would do, but do it in a much more ethical way. So I might be testing their external networks, their web applications, or sometimes I even get hired to see if I can physically access sensitive areas, maybe to bypass locks or talk my way past a security guard or a receptionist and be able to explain new ways that they could have prevented those types of things. And I just get to do that every week for a different client and get to learn all the time and also show what I've learned to the clients and help their security as well.
And when you're talking about, when you're saying you're talking to the company or the network, that's not just talking, you're not just writing into the company, you're using code, correct?
Sometimes there's a little bit of code, but there's at the end of the test, there's always going to be a big report that I have to write. And that's usually a couple dozen pages that is going to go to whoever in the company that hired us. It's usually going to be like a chief technical officer, a chief security officer. Somebody on that level is going to get the full report that walks through exactly what we did, when we did it, how long it took, all the different issues that we found. How we found them and how they can replicate the same types of issues that I found, as well as the remediation. So they can get a head start on figuring out how to fix the various issues that we found so they can prevent someone else from getting in.
So you're essentially using your superpowers in the IT world for good rather than evil.
Absolutely. We're using them all for good, and lots of times we learn from the bad guys to be able to do these same types of things as well.
Well, we're talking about AI. Going to switch gears here. How is that really impacting social or cybersecurity?
AI is already a huge part of the types of things that we do. We're seeing it on both sides. So we can also talk a little bit about some of the things that the hackers use AI for, but I also use it all the time to continue learning. There might be times when I see a possible possible way into a company, into their network, and I'm not quite sure how it works. I can ask AI and it will explain it to me. Now, lots of times there are guardrails on it to keep the bad guys from saying, well, how do I break into my bank? AI is probably, hopefully, not going to tell them those types of things. But if I ask AI, like, show me how to walk through this vulnerability in Windows, it might, or if there's different ways that I can even phrase it, or sometimes it can even just speed that up. So a lot of times that's how I'm using AI, but I'm sure the hackers are going to be using it the same way as well, which is why the companies are hiring people like me to tell them in advance where those issues are and how to fix them.
Right, because you can imagine these hackers are leaning on AI to help them find vulnerabilities or even writing code to be able to get through the back door of someone's system.
Yes, they are going to be using the AI to write the code to find the vulnerabilities and maybe even to find which companies could be vulnerable. If they find a vulnerability that they like to use to get in, they could just search the entire internet, all the computers on the internet for which ones have those vulnerabilities, and then be able to focus on those as well, which is one of the things that we often tell companies when they've been hacked, that many times it's not really so much that you were specifically targeted. It was that somebody just scanned the internet for a specific weakness, for a vulnerability, and happened to find that you were vulnerable to those types of things. So those are some of the types of things that are the AI is being used for.
And when we're looking at AI when it comes to phishing emails and texts, I'm assuming that it's making it harder for us people to really detect whether this is a phishing email or text versus in the past, you look for spelling errors, and now I feel like it's going to be a lot more difficult if these hackers are using AI to have a clear and concise sentence and make it look real.
Yeah, one of the things that they're able to use AI for is to write a phishing email or a phishing text message that is really going to be in the voice of somebody that they trust. So just with a little bit of searching, somebody can look around and see who is a person that you trust. Maybe if I was trying to create one of these for you, I might look for a different reporter at Channel 12 and say, write this in the voice of this other reporter to Sarah. And AI is able to do that. Now, you also mentioned something like the spelling errors. Those are things that we've looked for in the past, or grammatical issues. And I often like to tell people that let's not look for those so much anymore, in large part because what we're really trying to do is to verify and validate the emails that we're getting, phone calls that we might get, text messages that we get, that they are actually coming from those people. And I often put this challenge out there every time that I speak in the public: show me one of these types of attacks that can't be stopped with validation and verification. So let's say you get a text message that comes from the Department of Transportation, and you call the Department of Transportation. They're going to tell you, no, that's not real. Or you may get a phone call from the police saying that your grandson or your nephew has been arrested and they need money to get out. Well, you can hang up and call that police station back. When you do this type of validation and verification, you'll see that these types of attacks don't work anymore. So even though we do have AI that is going to make it much more believable, or like I said, it can make it in the voice of someone else, if there's that little tingly sense that goes on in the back of your mind saying, this doesn't really make sense. Why is my boss asking me to go get gift cards for the company? Why are they asking me to go to a cryptocurrency ATM and send them money? Those types of things just don't really make too much sense. This person wouldn't ask me to do that. So you can take that second, contact them some other way, never contact them in a way that the email or the phone call is asking you to do it, because they're going to give you a number just right back to them. Contact them in a way that you know how to get in touch with them and validate it with them.
Right, because you can imagine that if you call or message this bad actor back, they're just going to lead you down the path of potentially giving over your personal information.
Oh, they sure are, because that's another attack venue that we are testing people with and showing them that it exists, where we might send them an email saying, your car warranty is running out, call us. Or we'll send them an email that says, we saw this charge on your credit card, call us. So when they call us, they already know, they do think that they're calling the correct company. So there's already that trust built in. And that's going to be one of those areas where you can't really trust those. If you think that you're calling your bank, make sure you're calling the actual bank number, not the one that was given to you in that email or in that phone call.
Right, and you have to double verify the number too. At least for me personally, when I was setting up my gas and electric account a few years ago, I Googled a company. The first ad that popped up, I clicked it. It was a sponsored ad. I called that number, and when I called, I realized my alarm bells were going off. This is not the company that I was trying to get in touch with. This was some bad actor, so I initially hung up. But you have to be extremely careful even when Googling a number, right?
Absolutely. You have to be sure that you are contacting the correct company. Like in your experience, that these attackers might pay for ads at the top of Google, which not everybody is going to catch, and not everybody is going to realize that they're interacting with not the real company, which is really what they're counting on.
It's hard now. You just think whenever it comes to your personal information or even a phone call, you just have to be on alert.
You do. And that's one of those things where we tell people it's okay to hang up and call back. It's okay if your spidey sense is going off in order to say something just doesn't seem right, to trust your gut and to believe that let's just take a moment and look back and contact them correctly.
I am always suspicious. I recently bought concert tickets and I was getting a good deal compared to what I saw the price of them previously. And I was putting in my credit card information, and then I asked my friend, hey, can you verify and look up if you are getting the same ticket on your phone as I am, so I know that it's not just like a duped, ripped off website that I'm putting my information in. beyond that, when you're looking at social media and there are deep fakes and cloning scams of people's voices, how do you interpret that? How can you figure out what you're looking at is real?
For the most part, you can't.
That's scary.
That is very scary. That's a huge problem with it. Where nowadays, when people are able to do those deep fakes and the clonings, there's almost no way. One of the things that we have seen recently is some of the deep fake videos. I've seen for job interviews, you can ask them to like wave their hand in front of their face, and sometimes that'll mess it up. But some of the latest technology is able to also handle that. But there are little gaps sometimes you'll see where they're pausing to answer questions, but they're only going to get better. So a lot of these types of things is just going to go back to making sure that you're contacting them correctly, contacting them in the first place. But with a lot of the deep fakes, it's really hard in order to figure out if the person that you're speaking to is real, because I just attended a conference where we talked about this type of thing. And it takes between 10 and 30 seconds of AI listening to somebody's voice in order to clone it and be able to talk in the same way. It really doesn't take much. And just about anybody out there probably has some degree of online presence. I know that there's lots of people who share videos of themselves. And if it's only going to take 10 to 30 seconds for AI to be able to clone that, it's going to be something that you need to be aware of and let your family and friends know. If somebody seems to be contacting you as me, or if it doesn't seem right where you think it's me, it's okay to pause, stop, hang up, end that conversation.
Right. You think of grandparent scams where they call and there's such urgency that your loved one was in a crash and you need to act now. But before, people would say, I gave the money to what ended up being a scammer, and I didn't realize the voice didn't sound exactly like my grandson, who might have been in jail or in a car accident or whatever the case may be. But now you're saying that it could sound exactly like maybe your grandson calling you.
It's going to sound exactly like the grandson, in the same tone, same voice. Everything is going to sound perfect. So again, that's going to be one of those types of instances where families need to understand it's okay for me to hang up and to call back. Like if somebody is in the hospital or if somebody is arrested, 5 more minutes is not going to make a difference. They're not getting out of jail any faster. They're not going to heal any faster for that 5 minutes. So from there, it's okay to hang up and contact them that way.
So always take a breather there. And even online, like if you look at social media, there are so many videos popping up. I don't know if you saw recently Jake Paul on social media. There are these fake videos of him in different outfits doing different things, and it looks very legitimate. What do you say to consumers of social media when they're looking to verify videos or understand where their news source or information is coming from when we're watching this? Because this could be very scary.
It is, and we're probably going to see these types of things happen where it affects the stock market, or hopefully it doesn't even affect national security or anything like that. But for some of the ones like you described, hopefully they can also see them as entertainment. And if they really want to verify, validate, they can go back to the source. Or you mentioned a Jake Paul one. I would hope that they could, if they're a fan of his, they could go to one of his official social media accounts and see if it's real on there. Because as we're going forward, more and more of these fake things are going to be coming up, and it's something that we're all going to have to deal with.
When you're thinking of AI and the power of it, in your field, what is the biggest fear when it comes to AI?
Some of the biggest fears that we have is probably just how quickly it is able to help the hackers to find whatever is going to be the latest vulnerabilities or the latest weaknesses for companies, or even some of these types of fakes and phishing emails that are going to make a whole lot more sense, because we see that people are still going to be vulnerable and be victims to these types of attacks. So it's really going to make it much easier for the hackers to be able to fool people and make them into victims.
And we know they can take your personal identity, they can take your money, they really can get their teeth into your whole personal world.
They can, and one of the things that we know is virtually all of us have our information out there in one way or another. And there are lots of times where I do investigations into people that they hire me to investigate just to see what their risk is and to see what information is out there. And there's lots of people where you can see a lot of information about them out there. And sometimes even their biggest vulnerability isn't themselves, it's people around them. There are some people that I get asked to investigate and they have almost no information out there about themselves, but maybe their spouse or their children or their parents have posted about them. And that's another area where we can find that information. And when I come back to them and show them all that, probably one of the most common questions I get is, well, should I just delete all my social media? And my answer for them is no. I wouldn't say you need to just go dark on all of that. It's more of an awareness. And that's really why people bring me in, is to show them these are all the different types of things that can be found. These are some of the risks, and these are some of the areas that you should be aware of. And sometimes they even ask me to go so far as, well, show me what are the bad things hackers could do with this.
Oof.
And we get to show them that as well. And that's really just so they have the awareness, so they can see what it might look like. Because what I really want to happen is that after I show them those types of things, if it does happen, they're ready for it, they're aware of it, and they're able to shut it down. And that happens lots of times too, where somebody will hire me a second time. And I'll come back and do it again, and I get shut down right away. And I'm like, that's exactly what I want to see.
Amazing. All right, so when we come back, we're going to talk more about protecting your online personal safety. We'll be back. All right, welcome back. So when we just, before we took a break, we did talk about looking online, people putting out too much personal information. What would you say is too much personal information? Is it your location? Is it your town? What would you say that is?
What's going to be too much for each individual probably depends on who they are. You really should put as little information as you can, but social media really pulls it out of you to show where you are. I know that many years ago there used to be a website where all it did was it would scan social media looking for when people were on vacation.
Wow.
And post like, this person is on vacation right now.
Wow.
Which, as you can imagine, would be a really bad thing for that to be out there, because burglars know if you're not home, then there's probably nobody in your house.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I often think about when I'm away from home. If I want to post like, hey, look at me on this beach that's 2,000 miles, I might wait until I'm back home to post that. So sometimes those types of things, like that you're away, might not be the best thing to be posting online, because lots of the other sensitive information, like your home address, that's already public information. Your full name, your age, date of birth, that's all also likely findable online. Once you start getting into things like your social security number or those types of things, they're probably out there, but you probably don't want to post that so much either.
Yeah.
So there really isn't, I would say, it's going to be more situational to think about what is going to be your risk tolerance and what's your awareness for it.
I never thought of the going on vacation. It's like you're putting that out there, that it's like two bad actors are coming at you versus one. But also location-wise, too, if you're someone that's personal and private, you might not want to post that you're at a specific location right away at a certain time.
That's right. It might even be going to a sports game or going to a concert. You might not want to post in the middle of the concert, look where I am, I'm at this, because then people can be aware that either you're not home, or if there's maybe even a worse situation where somebody wants to find you, now they know exactly where you are at one of those types of events as well.
When we're shopping online, how do we know that the website we are on is legitimate? With AI, also, like we were just saying, they can really copy and paste and make something look so legitimate. How do you verify that?
Yeah, how to verify the correct sites that you're going to. Well, one is to make sure that you got there by typing in the URL yourself. Again, links can be a problem. There's lots of times that the link that you click on might not end up at the same place that you're really expecting. And I know many years ago, you probably heard about make sure the website has the little lock up in the URL bar and that it's using HTTPS, which just means it's an encrypted connection going back and forth. And pretty much every site is going to be using those. I know banks have it as a requirement that they're using those. They really can't exist without anymore. But really all that little lock does is it ensures that the connection between you and the website itself is encrypted. So nobody can sniff the information in between. But if you're not on the correct site, you're still sending sensitive information to the wrong site. So that's really going to be a way to ensure that you're at the right place is going to be by typing it in yourself.
Making sure it's legit. And government websites too. It should say .gov.
Yes.
Those are typically safer.
Right. It's not too difficult to copy a .com site, and even the .orgs aren't too bad, but .edu, .gov are going to be ones that are very difficult in order for hackers to get access to one of those.
When you're using public Wi-Fi, how vulnerable is your information if you're using public Wi-Fi at, it could be a coffee shop, it could be anywhere where you can just log in, even a hospital?
Sure. That public Wi-Fi is another kind of tricky one because, again, most sites are going to be using that little lock. They're going to be using the HTTPS, so it kind of secures a lot of the issues that we had in the past with the public Wi-Fi. And I also choose not to do banking or try not to do too many secure things when I'm out there. And really what my main concern is that when you're connecting to the public Wi-Fi, are you connecting to that location's actual public Wi-Fi? Because if you're in the local coffee shop, chances are they have a pretty decent setup. But at the same time, if I wanted to be one of the bad guys, I can create my own Wi-Fi that looks exactly like the coffee shops. And which one are you then logging into? Sometimes it's really going to be just a coin flip, whether you choose the correct one, or it could be whichever one is closer to you and the one that your computer wants to connect to. So that's really going to be the bigger concern there, because if you are on the actual coffee shop wireless, you're probably going to be okay with it.
So should you double verify with the public entity that you're at that the Wi-Fi that you're on is the correct one? Would you suggest that?
That would be a great idea to ensure that you're at the correct one for it, because there are also times when you've been there before and you go back in and it's going to automatically connect. I like to set mine to not automatically connect, which means I just have to put in the password each time.
Yeah.
But it is still possible if it's like Bob's Coffee Shop and that's the name of the Wi-Fi, that a hacker could go in there and create their own that's called Bob's Coffee Shop.
And so if that did happen, what personal information could a hacker get if you logged on to a public Wi-Fi? You then are vulnerable.
Absolutely. If I go in there and I create my own Bob's public Wi-Fi and somebody connects to that, all of everything that they do is going through my connection instead of the coffee shops. So that could be an issue there where the hacker is able to get everything that they're doing. Because again, all that encryption does is just keeps anybody that's in between the connection from viewing it. If you're connecting to a malicious site or connecting to a malicious Wi-Fi, they're still going to be able to get that.
All right, welcome back. So Patrick, when you're thinking of setting up an account or changing your password to a current account, what are your top tips?
Some of the things that I really recommend for people to do with their password is to make sure that it's going to be a strong password that they haven't used anywhere else. So by a strong password, what usually gives me trouble when I'm trying to break in or anything like that is anything over 10 characters. And if you can use at least 3, if not all 4 different what we call the character types, which is an uppercase, lowercase character, as well as a special character and a number, that's going to make it much more difficult. And to ensure that you're not using that anywhere else on any other site, especially not one that you truly care about, is going to help to secure you.
Would you recommend for people not to use the same exact password with a different 1, 2, 3? How vulnerable does that leave you if you're like, I'm using 10 characters, but then at the end you're just changing a few numbers or a star? What do you say to that?
Yeah, there are certain passwords that we see people using over and over again.
Which are?
There are 3 passwords that I always tell companies to never use. Those 3 passwords is, believe it or not, every company still has people that use the word password in some way, shape, or form. People always use some version of the company name. So if you're signing up for some service, if you're using something with the service's name in it, hackers are probably guessing that. And the other password that we tell people to not use is the season and the year. And the only reason that people use the season and the year is because lots of times they are asked to change their password every 3 or 4 months. So the season and the year changes as well. And sometimes when we're able to then see what those passwords are later on, or we can also see a password history for people, we do see that they are going to change from password 1 to password 2 to password 3. And I have had times when just guessing like that is able to get me into a network.
Wow. Well, we're thinking about having 12, 15 different passwords for each account because we're all signed up to many different things.
Right.
Are password managers safe?
Password managers are a great thing to use because it's really going to be a trade-off. So what we talked about is ensuring that you have a unique and strong password for each site. That's impossible for any person to memorize. So with a password manager, yes, you are putting all the keys to the kingdom in one place, but you can then put in an extremely strong password, maybe it's 20 characters or more, that is going to lock all of those down, which makes it extremely difficult for the attackers to get in. So I always recommend that people do use the password manager.
Will you just describe how a password manager works?
Yes, what a password manager does is it's like a little additional service or plugin in your browser that anytime you go to a website, it will automatically fill in your password for that website. And one of the other benefits is we've also talked about some of the copied sites that look exactly the same but might have a very slightly different URL that you might not catch. The password manager will not autofill your password for that because it recognizes that it's different. So after the first time that you go there and you save your password, it's going to automatically fill it in so you don't have to remember any of these passwords anymore. If somebody threatened my life for my banking password, I can honestly tell them I don't know because it's in my password manager.
All right, briefly, before we go, we have about 30 seconds left. If someone has been, their data has been in a data breach, what do they do?
Yeah, virtually everybody's had their data out there in a data breach. And some of the things that we recommend is to monitor your credit. You can also lock your credit. And again, to have strong passwords and to use multi-factor authentication or 2FA, MFA, or similar things where sometimes you get a text message on your phone that says, was this really you logging in? And you tell it, yes, that really was me. So some of those are going to be the things that help with that.
All right, great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
All right, we'll catch the latest 12 response right here on the 12 Plus app. See you later.